Huh, you came back for more airplane stuff. As a thank you, we've got a good topic to discuss today.
Should I buy or rent?
To buy or to rent? That is the question. And a happy day after Valentine's, guys and girls. Hopefully yesterday went okay for you, and if you don't celebrate that kind of thing, then even better, you probably got more money in your pocket than I do. But let's answer that question once and for all. I'm probably going to not be the first person that you've heard talking about that, but because I've rented before and because I bought several times, I think I can give you some insight. Now, I'm not going to go into specifics on what airplane you should buy or what type of airplane you should rent. I'm just going to pull some examples from my life and my situation, especially here in Savannah, because I've flown with a couple different rental agencies here in Savannah over the years. And I'm very much in tune with what they do and who they are. But yeah, let's see if we can answer some of those questions for you. Buy or rent? Let's get after it. Massive disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not an A&P. I'm not an IA. I'm not a AME. I'm just a guy standing in front of a house asking you to watch my videos and also reminding you to be financially responsible with everything that you do. Don't follow my exact example because your situation and mine are completely different. But hopefully with what we're talking about, you can be comfortable enough to go out and make some decisions of your own that's not going to completely tank your financial capabilities. Okay, really, to the computer this time. Let's take a look at a Piper Arrow 2, for example. Every month I spend money on these things, whether I fly the airplane or not. And here's what I come up with. I took the example because there's a similar Piper Arrow 2 at a local flight school, and this is what you'd be spending monthly. It makes sense, right? You don't own the airplane, so you're not spending anything on the airplane. Versus me, I'm spending everything on the airplane. Now let's take a look at the hourly operating costs of a Piper Arrow 2. We're going to consider these things: gas plus the cost of rental, a maintenance reserve for things like engine overhauls and the other things that are going to go wrong with the airplane. And I'm looking at about this to operate my Piper Arrow 2 per hour, about $110 per hour. Now, looking at a rented airplane, the rental cost is about $185 all in, and no maintenance reserve because, again, you don't own the airplane. You squawk and walk, as my friends would say. The total there is $185, so I'm coming out on the plus side from renting, but that's not really the full picture. Before we go forward, it's important for you to acknowledge and realize that rental operations are there to make money. They have employees and bills to pay, like everybody else. So they need to charge you based on some standard, and that standard becomes Hobbs time. The Hobbs is a little meter in the airplane that ticks over once the master is on, or in some installations, once oil pressure is flowing. In that situation, 1 hour is equal to 1 hour. You write down what the Hobbs time says in your logbook, and you carry on. None of my airplanes, and a lot of the airplanes that my friends own, have Hobbs meters. We track our time based on the tack. And the tack spins a little bit slower when you're at idle, like on the ground and during descent, and it spins at full time when you're above a certain RPM. So what that means is tack time is usually a little bit less than Hobbs time. Most people will tell you that that decrement is about 20%. So at the end of my flight, I record my tack time, and I tack on an extra 20% to bring it up to what I think is actual PIC or flying time, the time that I'm behind the controls. That creates a little bit of an issue here when we're looking at the cost of renting versus owning, because I immediately take a 80% write-off based on the fact that I own the airplane. So that brings my hourly operating expense pound for pound or hour for hour down by about 20% off of what you'd be paying for a similar or identical rental. Okay, let's move on. Okay, this is starting to become a lot of math, so let's get through it. For someone who's looking to fly about 100 hours a year, which in my estimations is a really good target for someone who's trying to stay current and proficient, and, just keep the airplane exercise appropriately, you're looking at about 8.3 hours per month. That, for me as an owner, is about $700, but for you as a renter is about $1,500. But here's the rub. We've got to add in that monthly operating cost from earlier in the video. So that brings my total monthly expenditure for flying about 8 hours or 9 hours up to about $2,100 for the month, and you would still be right at $1,500 for the month. Now, is that a huge delta? Not necessarily. Some people might be able to justify it because you get to do stuff like this. Yeah, I figured I'd just lay here in my airplane and have a good time. Now, I'm just taking a quick look under the instrument panel. Every now and then I take a peek on there to be sure that wires haven't come loose under the panel or flopping around or getting in the control mechanism, because that would be a really bad day. So we didn't see anything crazy under there today, so we live to fly another few hours until we do it again. I tend to do this maybe once a month. It's about the same time that I go and hit all of the joints and control surfaces in the airplane with LPS2, just to keep corrosion at bay and keep the airplane nice and lubricated. That's our plan when the airplane's parked outside, just to keep up with your lubrication schedule. And my schedule just happens to be about once a month on all my airplanes. Control surfaces, hinges, anything that moves, anything that's rubbing up against something metal, gets a little shot of LPS. I'm gonna get up now. It's actually kind of comfortable, but that's not what we're doing today. So let's move on. I'm just stepping away from the editing desk because I think it's important to highlight that we've been talking a lot about money, and that creates a lot of anxiety for some people. Talking about money is one of those things that I hate to do, but I wanted to give you some facts. It's also really important for you to see that I don't have a car payment. I drive old cars, beaded cars. I talked about that in a video before. If I need to go somewhere, I'll hop in the airplane. I might not need to spend money on an airline ticket. I don't go on extravagant trips every single week. These are the things that I sacrifice in order to have a hobby and a thing that brings me joy. So even though I'm spending a whole bunch of money, it's bringing me so much satisfaction on the opposite side that it's I won't say I'm writing it off, but for my own mental health, these things are a net positive. Okay, so take care of yourself, talk to someone if you're feeling anxiety, but hopefully this is making sense for you who's thinking about doing these kinds of things. Okay, back to the video. Okay, so in our previous example, the break-even point is right at about, I'd say 13 to 14 hours per month of flying. And that might sound like a lot, but when you consider the run from Savannah to where my brother lives in New Orleans, the round trip is about 7 hours, even in a Beechcraft Bonanza. That monthly time goes by very quickly. But not to throw it in your face, but at the same time, when you rent an airplane, you've got to bring it back. I can stay off-site as long as I want to. It's not going to cause an issue with the next person flying my airplane, because there is no next person flying my airplane. I can just go and have a great time, like you're seeing me do here. Just parking my airplane down at Brunswick, having lunch, having no agenda, and then turning around whenever I want and coming back. Also, some rental agencies will charge you a minimum amount of hours that you can keep the airplane if you go overnight. That's not the case here. You hop in, you go, you have a good time, no worries. Weather changes, no worries. The airplane breaks down, no worries. It's just a little bit more peace of mind and a little bit more comfort when you own an airplane than it is when you're renting an airplane. And that's not something that I can quantify, it's just something that carries a certain feeling along with it, and I hope you get to enjoy it at some point. Well, if you want to own, this is one of your realities right here. Yeah, this is the part I wish I didn't have to show you, because you're probably going to be walking away from ownership if you don't like cleaning things, or just spending your time on mundane tasks that other people would have done because you rented the airplane. I can promise you the belly of this airplane is going to look much better than any rental that you can touch right now. But this is what you've got to do. You get out there, you get dirty, you've got to spend time, and no one's recording what their time is worth, because, let's be honest, sometimes this is actually pretty therapeutic, and it's very enjoyable to get away, get out there, and just do something that makes a big difference, just almost instantly. You can't get that feeling with renting. You squawk and walk, like we talked about. Alright, so we're 10 minutes into the video. Let's remind ourselves what we've been talking about.
Hey Joanza, should I rent or buy?
Thanks, Vicky G. Well, let's look back at it. It's gonna cost a lot regardless of whether you rent or you buy. In some instances, it's much better. Our break-even point with the example on the Piper Arrow was about 13 hours. But then we talked about the emotional side that I just can't quantify. You just can't put that down on paper. In my experience, it's been amazing to own. You can also lease back your airplane or form a partnership to cover some of the bills that you just wouldn't have had if you were renting, and that levels the playing field a little bit more. But at the end of the day, my recommendation is always going to be to do something nice for your neighbor today, and we'll see you again soon. And sorry about that editing glitch. My actual advice between buying or renting is for you to